Hi, guys. Welcome to the Creative Block Podcast. I'm Vince Gonzalez. Today, we're talking with Anibal Suriel, founding and managing partner at Solidity Law. Solidity Law specializes in technology-driven legal representation. So, picture this scenario. Earlier this year, I was at NFT LA, Outer Edge LA. I'm at the Future Factory opening party, Future Factory downtown LA opening reception party. I'm just sitting at a table minding my own business. And a couple of guys come up to me and they're like, hey, so what are you doing? What are you working on? I'm like, I have this podcast, creatives and artists. And one of the guys whips out his phone. He's like, oh, dude, you got to talk to my friend. He's a lawyer. And I'm like, a lawyer? I don't think you just heard what I said. And then I thought, oh, actually, that makes a lot of sense. I should talk to a lawyer, as probably we all should. So that's kind of how I found you and connected with you. Some of the topics I want to cover is, you and I mentioned this earlier, attribution and ownership, content distribution, privacy and data protection, smart contracts and IP rights. I'm all about IP rights. And so, these are giant conversations in a crazy, fast-moving environment. So really appreciate you making the time. Thank you for being on the show. I hope you're well, and I'm grateful for you being here today.
No, thank you for having me on the show. It's always a good opportunity for me, showcase a little bit.
A little bit about your background. Like, I would imagine you came from a traditional law space, and now we're talking about Web3 environments. How did you get into this space, and what attracted you to it?
I guess I wanted to go against the status quo a bit, right? And I thought to myself, hey, look, there's no crypto lawyers. If there's any niche I could build for myself, it's this. So since 2017 and past 2017, I graduated law school in 2020, right when the pandemic hit. In between 2017 and 2020, I did have some roles at blockchain companies, but nothing too interesting, right? Had I stayed in New York, where I was for about 7 years, I would have been pigeonholed into this compliance role. But because of the pandemic, because it was the worst job market, I was looking for sort of any and all opportunities for me to stay in the space. And that entailed me going to Dubai. So I lived in Dubai for about 2 years, where I started off as an associate at a local law firm specializing in emerging tech, quickly grew through the ranks, and I became the head of the cryptos divisions there. I don't know if you could tell through the podcast, but I guess depending on who I'm interacting with, I could come off as, I guess, charismatic. And in that, somebody, a client came up to me and they were like, look, we love your energy. We love your personality. We're starting this group of crypto companies. Can you come head this group in the legal department? To me, that was like, okay, this is a pretty big ask, but I'm never going to get this opportunity again, right? I think a lot of building your own career is a mix of luck and opportunity and just being ready to take those opportunities, right? And I said to myself, why not? I went, I learned a lot, I grew a lot, but at the end of the day, Dubai wasn't for me. Not to knock anybody's taste, but I already live in Miami. It's already glitz and glam, and Dubai is like that times two, plus the heat that runs, 100, 110 every day. Not sustainable, right? So I guess all of that, I came back home to Miami and I thought to myself, how do I keep things going? I had interviewed very briefly with Nike for their assistant general counsel position for digital assets. As you know, Nike is very much deep in the space. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. And I believe that had to do with the timing of the market, because as soon as I got the news that, hey, we went with somebody else, you could look at the charts and just everything was it's pretty bad. But look, I mean, I treated it as just another opportunity for me to continue moving forward, and that's always my model. Let's continue moving forward. I opened up the firm. I'm trying to sort of build a brand for myself. Since then I've spoken at ETH Denver, where I spoke about the fundamentals that a crypto startup needs to attend to, right? I spoke at NFT NYC, where I spoke on the copyright implications of selling generative AI art, right? And I'm just slowly building it. I mean, I'm doing biz dev, doing the actual work itself. I love it all. It's a lot of hard work, and actually, it was last weekend that I finally told myself, like, we got to slow down. Let's take it off. no emails.
Ah.
But I'm here, I'm alive, and again, thank you for having me on.
Oh man, I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I appreciate it. Just as an overview, what kind of clients do you have? Like, what are sort of their challenges that you're seeing? Um, uh, uh, People that are coming up to you, things that you're working on.
Yeah, of course. So if I had to, I guess split them up, right? When you're starting your own business, as you know, you kind of had to accept anything that's coming in through the door. I've kind of taken it as an opportunity to learn more and more and more, and hence why I got into litigation itself. As to my choice clients, I live and breathe, I guess Web3, as corny as that sounds. I love to do the work. Why? Because it really does make you think actively and out of the box. Because let's say if you were to go to a big law firm, they're all going to say, I don't know. And a lot of the times they're not going to want to advise because it is sort of scary to give advice as to something that's not written in stone, right? As you and I know, the laws are constantly changing. The SEC doesn't want to sort of clarify their position. They seem to think that, enforcement by action and everything like that will do the trick, but in reality, it won't, right? But to answer your question, sort of the difficulties that a lot of clients face nowadays is understanding what a mature company needs to come
Hmm.
off as that mature company that people can trust and come to, right? Because that's usually a concern out of the SEC that hey, are you guys doing business legitimately? Do you have the proper policies in place? If as the topic of this podcast, right, intellectual property, do you have the MCA notices on the website in case somebody has a complaint about a third party infringing on their copyrights? Things like this to sort of show the public, hey, we're not here to scam you. We're here to grow a legitimate business. So, in the range of clients that I have, I do have one client that's an NFT sort of exchange, a marketplace. I do have one client that is, well, one potential client that is in the middle of potentially suing Alameda and everything like that. Can't really talk about that case, but those are sort of the things that I'm getting in the door that, I'm doing my best to showcase that these are the things I can handle. These are the things that may not be done too often in practice, but will, sort of limit your liability. Because a lot of the time, if you come to me and say, "Hey, look, I want to launch a token," it's not just about calling it a utility token and hoping it's all good. There's a lot of things to consider, right? Usually, when it has to do with securities, what's controlling there is how you market that security, and you want to just make sure that you're messaging out there, that you're not tweeting, with a little rocket ship emoji, because that's already been interpreted by the courts to mean, hey, we're gonna go up in profit, so come invest in me, right? Uh,
Damn.
yeah, no, it's not an easy space to be in, just because at this in this day and age, right? It's all global, worldwide companies. You need to know the sort of laws in multiple jurisdictions. You need to stay abreast of the latest enforcement actions. I myself try to listen to podcasts every day when I go into the gym. I can't do
Cool.
20 minutes of cardio without a podcast right now. So just constantly, learning, right? And that's the thing. One thing is, I have a sister-in-law. She does personal injury law. She knows her practice, and there's not much more she needs to learn, right? That's a
Right.
very niche thing. It's state of Florida. I myself
You
have
want her to
to.
be specialized in what she does.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And then for me to call myself a blockchain attorney, what does that mean, right? I have to specialize in securities. I have to specialize in IP, data privacy, sort of the whole gamut of what a startup needs to properly run in today's day and age, right?
That's crazy. It's funny because I think about, and I had this conversation just yesterday as a company out of Brooklyn, New York, and they're a ad agency, but uh, all their clients are Web3 clients. And she came from traditional background. Uh, and I'm kind of fascinated by this conversation because when you think about a lot of Web 2 successful stories, um, those guys and gals should be celebrated, but they don't always have the knowledge base to move them forward. What got them here may not move them forward. And so this idea of sort of unlearning and getting out of assumptions is kind of a hard thing to do sometimes because you have to look at these things in brand new ways. Do you see that with your clients, or maybe your clients are young enough where they're just naturally like that? But I know a lot of people my age, they're like, so what is it? What's happening? Like they're really struggling to understand where it's going.
And I mean, to really understand where it's going, it just takes the sort of dedication to say, "Hey, let me sit down and learn this," right?
Yeah.
Because I've known individuals in wide ranges of ages. I mean, there's even attorneys in my space that have been practicing for 20, 30 years that have all of a sudden pivoted, and they call themselves AI and Web3 attorneys.
Wow. Cool.
Not to knock them or anything like that. I mean, I was born in this situation
Right.
to simplify it. But at the end of the day, yeah, if you put your mind to it, you can sort of adapt and pivot, right? So when it comes to Web 2 companies sort of pivoting to Web 3, I think it's just important for those individuals that are in the position to make those decisions to pivot, to sort of be open-minded, bring on the right advisors. Don't be afraid to say, I don't know this, so that you can actually know the areas you need to improve on, right? If you don't have a growth mindset in the space, you're not going to get far. And that's the whole, I mean, I don't know if AI is part of our topics today, but look, that's something that even for me, I've had to tell myself, okay, I need to be prepared to pivot, right? Because if
Yeah.
there's anything that AI can sort of automate away in the legal space, it's maybe, drafting contracts, maybe drafting terms of service. So I myself have to be prepared to pivot from being that transactional attorney to being more litigation oriented, because look, as good as AI is today, and actually I heard an AI generated song yesterday of Frank Sinatra's voice, pretty seamlessly used to sing. I forgot the artist of the song, but it's like from the windows to the walls to the sweat. Yeah. And it was pretty seamless. I mean, look, it's exciting, it's scary, but yeah.
Well, it's funny. I'm glad you brought up AI, and it wasn't actually in my notes, but I don't know how we can not talk about it. But I'm kind of at the position now where like I don't trust anything anymore. I mean, I thought things were bad when everybody was talking about deep fake, and I'm like, wow, that's really good.
Yeah.
And now we're like beyond that. So as I'm somebody with an IP in photography and digital art
Mm.
that goes back 20 years, right? And so a big part of me wanting to be in this space is because I think I could probably find a home for what I have. And now it's, well, how do I prove it's mine?
Yep.
So that's from the consumer, from the audiences, you know how are we going to know what's real?
See, that would take, in my opinion, a change in legislation. It would require
Hmm.
both parties to cooperate for once in the past decade or so, and really, step up to the task, because the space is moving extremely rapidly.
Yeah.
Everybody's feeling the sort of heat to, let me just create the next best thing, and let me
Right.
let me do all of this and disregard, the ethical implications, and that's sort of something that we do need to be prepared for, right? You as a creator, I've dealt with a couple of cases where sort of defending the accused, right? Where I had one client who manages a portfolio of different Airbnbs. He had hired this photographer, and there was some sort of miscommunication there where, he was late to pay a bill by a day or so, and the photographer just said, you know what, I'm not going to take this sort of disrespect that he perceived, and he just went ahead and and sent this individual a sort of cease and desist and asking for statutory damages.
Wow.
That could actually amount to pretty scary amounts, right? If you as a photographer see that your copyright's being infringed, if you registered, right, and that's something I'll suggest to everybody, it's not too expensive to register your copyrights. But if you registered your copyrights and the sort of infringement happened after that, you can go ahead and request statutory damages, as the minimum of which, if there's no sort of defenses, right, is just $750 per infraction, right? So if you took 30 pictures of this house, this guy used those 30 pictures, it's 30 times 750. So this counterparty was asking for what, $28,000, and these are the sort of things that you have to be prepared for. And not saying obviously it's coming from my mouth as an attorney, but you should have either a friend that's an attorney or someone
Right.
who who you know would help you on the cheaper
Totally.
or things like that. But
Yeah.
in terms of AI generated art and things like this, it's going to be very interesting to see because I already know there's pending lawsuits against these AI companies saying, hey, look, you have one of my pictures in your database. You're training your AI to sort of generate these new pictures based off of my picture. This brings up questions of, derivative use. What if, in the one in a million chance, the AI produces an image that's exactly like yours? Who's going to be held responsible? There's just a whole host of novel questions that the technology brings forth, right?
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, take
You're not.
advantage. You have a lawyer on. If you have any questions, man.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
that I'm
Yeah.
offering legal advice.
Understood. Understood. I appreciate your disclaimer there. Let's go through some of your bullet points, and I just want to give sort of general descriptions on it because we could probably take each one and spend all day on it.
Oh yeah.
Right. So there was a couple of things you sent me in our sort of our pre-meeting notes and things like that, and really just kind of talk about maybe what it is and your sort of personal relationship with these as you've seen it with your clients. Attribution and ownership.
Yeah, so this sort of brings up the question as to, who actually created the work in question, right? If there's ever any sort of dispute as to, hey, this person's infringing my copyright, one sort of element that you as a copyright owner need to prove is, I'm actually the one who created this.
Mm-hmm.
For example, you could have two separate NFTs, one being an original and the other one being a duplicate of that original. You can go on to the duplicate's sort of history and see, okay, this NFT was minted on this date. This must be the original. But unless you know that the original NFT exists somewhere else in the space, there's going to be some sort of dispute as to, okay, we have two of these records that show when these things were minted, but which one's actually the original? And you'd have to be able to look for things like this. And there is software out there that sort of it scrapes the internet and it makes sure that sort of these samples that you deposit with these softwares are not being infringed, right? So I mean there's a good and bad side to AI. It's just important to know, like, hey, look, at the end of the day, you're the one who's responsible for proving
Right.
that you're the one who created that IP, that you own that IP, that it was never licensed away, that you have pretty much even the rights to bring it to court to begin with, right?
That's crazy. And blockchain. The promise of blockchain is that it helps protect some of that process, but nothing's perfect, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, nothing's perfect at all. I mean, um, especially, I mean, it's just think of like a very rudimentary Excel sheet, except it's distributed across all other, sort of computers. It really depends on who's inputting that information to begin with, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
because it's on a blockchain doesn't mean it's verified.
Let's talk about briefly about content distribution. What is that? What does that mean, really?
So it brings into the question of these sort of secondary transfers. One thing is getting an NFT minted, right? You'll be the first holder, and another thing is for you to sort of distribute that content after, right? And what this sort of invokes is what happens to the license that you as the minter have, right? It's not something that by operation of law automatically transfers. You have to make sure that you go ahead and create the license, that you have all the terms written down, that you're not accidentally giving away a right that you as the content creator originally have, right? And this goes as to, like, at the end of the day, you can sort of split up all the rights in as many different ways as you want. If you wanted to create a license that only gives the right for this person to display the NFT on their website, you can do that. But you also need to make sure that in those terms, that the same license and only those rights in that license transfers upon, transfer of the NFT itself. Because one thing is the asset in that NFT, and another thing is, I guess, the sort of terms that are embedded as to that asset itself, right? I always say the simplest way to think of an NFT is as a digital container,
Hmm.
and what you put in it is sort of up to you, right?
Privacy and data. It's interesting because the blockchain, you know, is transparent in some ways, and yet it's not supposed to reveal personal identity. So there's that tension, right?
Yeah.
So we can see all the transactions, but with bad players, we can't just roll out and go find them. So what do you think about that?
Um, I mean, what's good about the blockchain, right, is that you're able to track everything. I mean, I've always said that, despite the rhetoric from the government and the SEC that, crypto's used for money laundering and whatnot, the truth of the
Right.
matter is that you could go ahead and track exactly where the money's come from, assuming there's nothing like, tornado cash in the middle, right? But
Right.
that's the beautiful thing about crypto and Web3 in general, right? I guess for our listeners, the way I describe it, right? You might describe it differently, but think of Web 2 as you using Google to sign into a third party website, right? You have your identity stored in Google, Google tracks all of your data. So it's very convenient for you to have that option, right? Web 3 is taking it a step further in that think of yourself as that Google account, be it your MetaMask or any other, compatible wallet, and you're allowing this third-party website to go ahead and access that wallet. In that wallet, you can have, I mean, as of today, most of the uses are for storing your crypto, but I do have a client out there that's sort of creating this decentralized application where he's taken this concept of the wallet and he's turning it into a sort of data wallet, right? So this data
Hmm.
wallet can go ahead and keep a track of your web usage, any other data that's generated by you just scrolling through the websites and everything like that. That way, at the end of the day, you own your data. There's a
Wow.
reason it's called. I mean, there's a reason that data's been sort of described as our age's gold, right? There's
Mm.
so much that companies can do with that data, and if you were the custodian of it and you got to decide, hey, I'll let this website use my data. They can go ahead and figure out whatever products I like, and you know what? I'm going to charge them to use that data too. It really is bringing a lot of power back to the people, and those are sort of the principles that I support. For the first time in our day and age, we are able to sort of have this sort of direct democracy. You don't need middlemen anymore. And it's all verifiable. It's all, you could check it on the blockchain, you could track it all. And that's the transparency you need to make these sort of idealistic claims, to come true.
Right, right. Yeah, it's going to be interesting because you're absolutely right. I think that there are going to be many people developing on top of wallets in ways we probably didn't even imagine, which is kind of exciting. And it hasn't been a big conversation, but it kind of makes really a lot of sense when you think about it that there would just be more utility stacked onto that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Um, Smart contracts and IP rights. So, it's funny. I was talking about my own catalog, and one of the things that I have that I've collected over the years is uh, matchbook art, right? And so I was taking a lot of this matchbook art, I was repurposing it, making like T-shirts and items for friends, and everybody always asks, "Do you have the rights to that?" And a lot of these, I would look at them, and they were like restaurants from the 50s and 60s, mom and pop places that don't even exist anymore. And so half of me doesn't share this wide because I'm afraid I don't 100% own it. The other thing I was doing was repurposing concert tickets, right? And I did meet with the lawyer, and they said there's the liability from the artist. It had a venue name on it. There was the liability from the venue, and they said some of the uh, ticket physical ticket manufacturers
Mm.
had uh, their own design trademarked. So in one image, there was three potential liabilities. And so, I'd be like making this stuff. It's a lot of fun. Like I'm wearing it, I'm giving it to friends, but super gun shy about like putting it out into the world. And it's probably not a good place to be, right? It's just that I, as an artist, should dive in and talk to you and say, what's real, what isn't, and where should I be worried?
Oh yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I mean, you could speak to a lawyer and they could come up with 100 reasons why you shouldn't do something. And me personally, I don't think that should be the approach lawyers take in general, right? When I have a client, I always ask them, hey, look, my advice is going to depend on your risk appetite, right? Because not to say, hey, let's go do illegal things, but Binance didn't get to become a Binance by fully playing by the rules. And again, I'm not advocating, hey, let's break some laws, but there's a sort of calculus that goes into, the risks that you take on, the potential benefits out of approaching things a certain way. So yeah, you have those three separate potential liabilities, but at the end of the day, it's up to these individuals to go ahead and enforce their own rights. That's something
Yeah.
super important in the IP space in general, whether it's a trademark, whether it's a patent, whether it's a copyright, and you yourself, you have sort of protections as well. I mean, there's the fair use doctrine. Maybe you didn't know that there was a sort of copyright registered, so it could have been seen as innocent infringement, which actually reduces your liability substantially. There's arguments to be made that what you did was a transformative use, right? And things like that. There was a case very recently that came out with Andy Warhol's picture for Vanity Fair that I believe it was a picture of Prince, right? And the cover was all purple. And then it was reused recently, pretty much the same cover, except the cover was now orange, right?
Mm.
Pretty much the Supreme Court came out with a majority decision saying that because it was for commercial use, at the end of the day, I believe the holder of the IP rights had paid uh, had requested $10,000 for Vanity Fair to kind of repurpose that, right? And because of that use there, it wasn't deemed as a fair use, right? Had it been deemed
Yes.
as a fair use, the infringer would have been let go. And those are sort of the protections there that sort of help to foster creativity, whether it's for research purposes, parody purposes, things of the goodwill nature that benefit the public versus are you sort of just capturing the benefit for your own personal gain? I haven't seen your art. I haven't seen the sort of applications you did with these tickets, but there's potential arguments there that it was a transformative use. You went ahead
Yeah.
and created something that's very distinguishable from the original works.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we didn't have these sort of protections in place, then we would never see the innovation that we'd love to see nowadays, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I'll just use me as an example. If I saw my artwork, somebody else using it, I would like to think that I wouldn't be showing it up at somebody's door with three lawyers and $1 billion lawsuit. Like, it's like, well, what's happening here? Because, there might be, giving people the benefit of the doubt, a conversation that can happen without, just getting quagmired into a lawsuit.
Oh yeah, and although I do litigation, I'm always one to sort of try to force mediation before we go that far. I'm not here advocating for you go infringe because the other person is likely not going to defend themselves, but there are avenues there for the small time photographers and whatnot to protect their own IP. I believe the Copyright Office recently established the Copyright Claims Board, which is sort of the small claims for copyrights, where you don't have to have the copyright registered. It's sort of an arbitration process, and it's tremendously cheaper to take things there versus
Yeah.
taking it through litigation, right?
Yeah.
And in that court, I believe you could have claims up to $30,000. So, maybe to the bigger companies like I don't know, what's Getty Images, they wouldn't take it
Right.
there, but maybe for
Right.
someone like you and I, who maybe I have a hobby on the side. Actually, if you see this picture here, I painted that myself, right?
Oh, that's
Anybody,
cool.
yeah, anybody here can go ahead and take the image itself and start commercializing that, and maybe the avenue that I would take is taking it to the copyright claims board.
Right.
But I
Right.
mean, all of this to say, because I can ramble all day, is there's tools for both sides.
Like you, I'm listening to podcasts. I'm, looking at, like, you were just at ETH Denver, watching that. Are there other layers that, resources that people should be looking at from your perspective?
Um, it's sort of a full-time job, so I mean, if you can sort of build a routine to make sure that you're learning a little bit every day.
Mm,
I do it in the morning, right? When like I said, I'm on the treadmill. I need to listen to something because I'm a little ADD, so I can't
hmm
just be running for 20 minutes nonstop, right? I take that as an opportunity to, put on the latest podcast, listen about the latest enforcement actions, listen about the latest developments in AI, because it's to me that's the next industrial revolution, right?
Yeah,
Those are
for
the
sure.
things that are going to affect a lot of people's rights moving forward, because it's just, if we had this sort of conversation at the start of the year, I don't even think we would be speaking about AI, right? This came out of the blue,
Nope.
and it's been a boon for me because I can put out a lot more content. I can learn about a lot of things a lot quicker. Of course, I advocate to always verify the information that comes out of ChatGPT, because I've seen a lot of incorrect things.
I'm
But
sure.
all of this to say is use the tools at your disposal, because if you're not using the tools, you're going to get left behind, and
Hmm.
those are the sort of things we have to avoid nowadays, right? It all feels like a
Yeah.
rat race, and you gotta do what you gotta do to get a step ahead, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's definitely a lot. It's super overwhelming because there's just so much information, and it's you got to remind yourself to sort of take a breath and just, like, this is a marathon, where you could just
I
get
love
into
that.
it,
Yeah, I always say
right?
it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. If you put in all your effort in the beginning, you're not gonna leave energy for the rest of the race, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Unless you have, these sort of one-off projects. If you're trying to build something for the long term, it really is a matter of keeping balance between everything. Yes, you're gonna have to sort of neglect certain areas of your life, as I have recently. But my goal right now is, let me build this business, let me build a sustainable practice, let me build a good client, a good list of clientels that I love to work with, right? Yeah,
cool. And I'll put all your contact information and everything in my show notes. And then you mentioned earlier that you listen to a lot of podcasts. I want to get your list down your 5 favorites. That just email me that, and I can stick that in, and
yeah, sure, more than happy to.
because I'm curious about what you're listening to. So thank you very much for taking the time to be on the show. I really appreciate it. I have a feeling this is going to be one of many conversations with you. As somebody who's a content creator, I don't always think about the legal side of things, but it's definitely, we need good partners in that field, and it's cool to talk to you and see it from your perspective. So I really really appreciate you being on the show, and I wish you the very very best.
Thank you so much. I can't say thank you enough as well. And look, at the end of the day, we're both in the Web3 community, and if there's anything that I've learned, is that we're pure collaborators, right? You and I are in the same boat. If you ever have any sort of question, don't worry. I'm not that attorney that bills you for every minute. I want to help you grow as well. So don't ever hesitate to reach out.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And I will. Wishing the best, and take care. We'll talk real soon.
You have a good one.